Paisley Jnr.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Secretary of State, for your opening remarks, which I know you hold sincerely. Let's cut to the chase. There's absolutely no doubt that politicians here want to see the devolution of police and justice. It's taken as read, we're all on that page. But that statement has consequences. And your seriousness in wanting to see us take on policing and justice will actually be measured by the financial package that is put in place that actually delivers. And I think you have said as much as that. But I think we should recognise how serious you are in that, and maybe you can actually tell us how serious you are. I mean, over the last 6 weeks, our investigations show that we have a shortfall, or we've got serious pressures in policing and justice amounting to something like £660 million over the CSR period. That's about a third again of what we currently get for policing and justice. Have you gone to the Cabinet? Have you indicated to them that that is the sort of ballpark the settlement is going to be in order for you to deliver on your commitment to see the devolution of policing and justice? Because you can say that you're going to hand us over a fully funded service, but in reality, fully funded may not mean that that £660 million is actually covered.
Well, let me just take it back a stage, and maybe I might bank the compliments now, since I suspect in what I go on to say there won't be many plaudits after that. The first thing is, I don't think one should judge this in the context of some sort of virility test, which is the more money you get somehow demonstrates the greater the commitment. To be frank, I think the commitment that we all showed together, the Prime Minister showed, in support of the political parties, in the way the parties here responded to the events of the last few weeks, is arguably the greatest measure of all. And I wouldn't want to confuse, therefore, a simple weighing of cash against genuine commitment to the police service of Northern Ireland and to the people of Northern Ireland. And I think that would be, particularly in this economic climate, I think it would be.
Commitment and rhetoric will not pay the bills, quite frankly. It will not build the prisons. It will not fund the lawyers. It will not finance the police.
Well,
service.
with huge respect to the lawyers, it may be that the lawyers might need to earn slightly less.
I have no difficulty with that.
Well, I'm glad we can agree on that at least. But I just caution you, because we will do our best for the people here in Northern Ireland, and we will do our best for the police service in Northern Ireland. But it would be foolish in the extreme to imagine that any settlement can be made regardless of the fact that we face arguably the biggest global recession that any of us have faced in our lifetime or any other period. And that what we've got to actually see here, therefore, is the commitment not only in terms of finance, but to the institutions and the other kinds of commitments that the British government is prepared to make as part of your virility test of our commitment to the process. That being said, I've made it very clear that I believe that the CSR settlement, again, should not be dismissed as a zero-sum game in which, having achieved arguably one of the strongest settlements of any police force in the United Kingdom, now doesn't matter. It does matter, because it's actually quite an important baseline. And that baseline, however, has met some additional challenges, which is precisely why I set the Hayward Committee up, and precisely why I think it's not helpful to provide a running commentary on the discussions and the negotiations that are taking place. As you know, it is represented by civil servants from Northern Ireland, as well as the Treasury, as well as Number 10, as well as other senior civil servants, with a view to honouring the Prime Minister's commitment to do the best we can should this Assembly request the transfer of powers. And I think it's important to allow that committee to do its work. And again, I think that if we only judge this by the number at the end of the day that's produced, when, again, let me just remind you that when Stage 1 and Stage 2 were conceived at St Andrews, the idea, for example, that it would have been possible, as the Prime Minister was able to do, to produce a substantial amount of additional financial help for the Executive and the Assembly at the end of last year, again, in very difficult financial circumstances, but nonetheless was not something requested at the time by St Andrews, but was nonetheless something that the Prime Minister felt able to do. So I just ask that actually what is done is seen both in context and in the round, and not just by picking off one area against another and measuring success on whether one part achieves a greater sum than another.
Put the Cabinet on notice. I appreciate that, and I don't want to stretch your patience. But I did ask the question, have you put the Cabinet on notice that the settlement could be a significant requirement for additional funding? Because if the Cabinet are not on notice, you don't want this to come as a shock to them.
I'm going to try and answer your question.
Yeah, well, I'll give him a chance to answer the question. I have a chance to ask the question.
Well, your question was, have I put it to the Cabinet?
Will you put the Cabinet on notice, or have you put the Cabinet on notice, that the sort of settlement package is going to be a substantial request, or a substantial request? It's not about virility, it's about commitment. Commitment will be measured by our ability to deliver this. And don't underestimate our desire to want to deliver it, but if we're short-changed on it, we can't deliver it. That's the issue, Secretary of State.
That's it now, because to be fair to everybody,